A very warm welcome to the old shop. It is just after mid-May now, and it's beautiful, beautiful day today, lovely blue skies, and the garden's looking really, really green. Everything's growing, including things like bindweed, which is growing up everywhere again, like it did last year and the year before, and probably the year before that as well. And the thistles and nettles are coming back as well. But at the same time, there's lots of young fruit on the fruit trees and lots and lots of wild plants, which are really beautiful. And there's a crow flying over, I don't know if you heard, and the swallows and the swifts and the martins are back as well. And there's a blackbird on the nest in the bay tree. Last year the nest fell to pieces really, and I thought it wouldn't be used again. It was used 3 times the year before, so that's one of my great joys at the moment. And I've been out and about quite a bit as well, so I've got a little bit of footage of other places around and about, and it's lovely May time. So I hope you'll enjoy it and look forward to your company. I wasn't intending to do a front garden tour for this video, and I'm not going to do a full one because we're going to look at the back garden today, but I just wanted to show you the roses, because if you know the old shop and you know me, you'll know that the roses are really my absolute favourite thing here, and the ones in the front garden in particular, well, I think they're all in the front garden really, all the roses. They are just so beautiful always, and they're so reliable, they just come back. And I've chosen only scented, the most highly scented varieties I could find, as well as the most beautiful. And my two favourites, which are Desdemona and Boscobel, are both out, so I thought we must have a little look at them. Desdemona is, I don't know if I can get far enough back really, but she's absolutely full of bloom. Let's see if I can focus on this for you. Absolutely gorgeous, and they're all in full bloom. It seems to have happened really quickly. I don't know, just turn your back for 2 seconds. Look at that one. Isn't that beautiful? I can't imagine a more perfect rose, and with the scent as well. I mean, that just particular bloom is just perfection. It just makes you happy to be alive really when you see a rose like that. And there's another one, and then Boscobel is the pink one. Not so easy to show you a really nice, there's a lovely one. I mean, they're all lovely. I don't mean to favoritise the different blooms, because some of them have just gone over a tiny bit already, and some of them of course are still buds. But I do like to see them when they are just at that perfect open point. And because it's a bit further back, I can't necessarily smell it directly, but let's pull this one down. Look at that. And with the sunlight playing on this as well, if it's a beautiful day, I'm sure you can see how blue the sky is. Unfortunately, there have been a few casualties from the trench that was dug in the front, which again, a video or two back, you may remember that I had all these damp issues, which hopefully are being resolved by digging out around the house. It's a bit early days to tell yet. But I thought that I'd saved, everything was okay, but it wasn't, unfortunately. And it's now kind of revealing itself that the Clematis montana, which was climbing over the porch, which is usually a very hardy plant, that's completely died. So I'll have to dig that out, unfortunately. There's no life in it at all. And the same is true of a couple of another rose and another clematis, unfortunately. But there's plenty of this left, which is very lovely, because I was not at all sure what would happen at the time. And I just wanted to quickly show you before we go, because again, I really love Aquilegias. The Aquilegia time of year is just the best. So that's one of the reasons May is one of my favourite months. And this one is a particularly delicate pink, which is one of my favourite colours as well. And I know I always say this, but I don't know what any of them are going to come out like, because they just seed themselves and they all come out differently, really differently from each other. They're not one variety, they just hybridise themselves. And so you get every shade of pink and purple and whitish, greenish, and which are all my favourite colours. There's only one Aquilegia in the garden that I know is an actual variety, because I bought it as a plant, which we'll look at. It's actually not in the very aesthetic part of the garden, it's just by the oil tank. It's because it was by the caravan when I lived in the caravan in the yard. And here it is. As I said, it's not the most beautiful part of the garden at all, but it is wild, so that's one of the things this garden's also noted for. And there are lots of Aquilegias that have all seeded themselves around here, like this purple one here, and a nice pink one here. Sorry about the backdrop, and another pale one, and another pink one, but a different shade of pink. But this is the one which is an actual variety, and I believe it's called Norobalo. And it's the only one in the garden, which in the whole of the garden, and you'll see when we look at the back that there are a lot of Aquilegias in this garden. It's the only one which is, as far as I know, a named variety. It may not even be called that, it might be called something else, ruby something, I can't remember now. I bought it when I used to work in the cafe in the garden, and they used to sell plants as well, and I remember being really tempted by it because it was very different, and the colour is very different from any of the others that I have, and the shape's very different. It's got quite small flowers, they're like little kind of three-dimensional stars, so they are really lovely. So now let's have a little look at the back garden. I will have to be selective because there's a lot here, and none of it really has been, none of it's anything that I've really had much of a hand in, but because it has happened by itself and it's such a phenomenon that it does, I thought you might like to see it. And I'm just pointing the camera at the moment at just another one of these accidental seeding itself of Aquilegia. just by the door of the outbuilding actually. But isn't it interesting, because this one looks like a proper variety because it's got these two colours on the flowers, and again none of the others have, but it has just seeded itself. They're just magical, as well as being beautiful. Well, there I was saying there weren't roses in the back garden, but there are a couple of climbing roses on the trellis, and here's one of them. I believe this is Rambling Rector, if I remember. Honestly, I start doing these tours and then I think, why am I showing you this? Because it really is such a mess. But I've kind of started doing this, so I'm going to continue. So it is what it is, as I always say. And the acrue are beautiful, so it's worth it for that alone, I think. I hope you don't get bored with them, mind you. I try not to only show you acrue. I'll do my best. But the trouble is, if I don't show you acrue, I'm probably showing you bindweeds and thistles and nettles. So I'm distracting you from those. Anyway, the trees have got really dense, and these, just to remind you, are the little, they're just like little bundles of 5 hedging plants that I bought, as they just look like sticks. It was winter time, sort of 3.5 years ago now, that I bought them and put them in, and you wouldn't believe it really. If you look at this alder tree, and alders are supposed to grow, well they do grow near water, with their feet in water very often, and this garden's not wet at all, but they love it here. They're one of the trees that's done best. As you can probably see, they've got this is last year's cones, and they've had, here are the new oh no, it's moving too much with the wind. Let's see if I can find a bunch that's not moving quite so much. There, so they're the new green cones for this year. So it has all these stages at the same time, and leaves, and you get catkins, although the catkins have finished this year now. But what I was actually going to show you, getting distracted from, was how thick the trunk is. This, as I say, was a stick, literally like a little stick, and it's like a proper tree trunk now, in such a short length of time. They really do like it here. I think everything does, so not only just the ground elder and all those sort of things, but the trees do as well. There's just such a dense jungle now. Well, it's not meant to be like a jungle, it's meant to be more like a native woodland really, with some fruit trees in as well. So this is an apple tree, and it's called Tidman or Tideman's Late. So there's a little apple. All the blossoms finished now, but you are starting to see the fruit. And the hazel trees, there are loads of hazel trees in this garden, or bushes, and they are really healthy. I haven't really had any nuts yet, but maybe we will this year for the first time, because there's certainly enough of them to, you'd have thought, to fertilise each other if that's what they need. I don't quite know what they need actually, I should look into that. And I don't get a lot of squirrels, in fact I never see squirrels, although I did see one in the garden next door a couple of days ago. But in the wild you often don't get, often the squirrels have got there first, but in the garden there's a bit more chance probably. And periwinkle down here, I'm going around in the wrong order I realise, but that's as tall as well, it's not up to my waist yet, but it's very tall. And that was periwinkle, I just pulled a strand out from the woods, from acorn wood, and put it down in the garden, or 2 strands I think, just to make a kind of understory maybe for the woodland, because you need like a ground cover level, and then you want a shrub level, and then you want the tall canopy level. And so I thought that would make it good, that would spread well, and it has certainly spread well. It's really got its feet under the table, and you wouldn't have thought the soil was that rich, because it's just a garden. I don't put anything, I don't feed it in any way, and yet look at it, it's like rampaging, and it's so healthy. I think there is something quite magical about this garden, and I don't quite know why, or what it is that they like. I think they probably like living in close proximity to each other actually. I've also read that somewhere, that plants actually want to be together. Oh, a swallow just flew over, that was lovely to see. I've seen swallows and swifts and martins this summer so far over the garden. I've not heard a cuckoo though. They are few and far between. I normally would hear one at least once, and usually from here, from the garden, or even from the house, rather than out in the wilds for some reason, although I'm sort of in the wilds here anyway. So this is my lovely pear tree, Commie's pear, and you can see here, not very many particularly, but maybe more than you think when you look closely, the baby pears coming, and they are the most delicious pears. Yeah, I think there are, yeah, and looking closely between the leaves, there are at least a dozen, I would say, which is lovely. These here are getting completely covered already in bindweed, but they are the little fruit trees I never put in, but I don't want to move them this year now. And they've got, as you can see again here, got plums, loads of plums growing on, amazingly, considering they're just really were just healed in. I am going to try really hard not to show you every aquilidea in the garden, but I just wanted to show you this one to show you that already we haven't really had a aquilidea tour this year, and already they're forming their seed heads, which are very beautiful as well, but it just shows how the season's moving on already. So we're walking through the wild, well, it's all quite wild, but the wilder parts of the garden. This part here has had a little bit of trimming done. I am going to try really hard not to show you every aquilidea in the garden, but I just wanted to show you this one to show you that already we haven't really had a aquilidea tour this year, and already they're forming their seed heads, which are very beautiful as well, but it just shows how the season's moving on already. And some of the plums, this is another different plum tree, this is an established plum tree, well, relatively established plum tree, and the plums are actually getting quite big. There are not many at all on this tree, but in fact, I can see it. Yes, I can see quite a few, but that's amazingly big for considering we're still only in May. Whether they're all mature, I don't know. So we're walking here through the wilder part of the garden, although of course it is all pretty wild, but it feels more so as you walk towards the back. And oh, sorry, can't resist. But look how frilly this one is. It's all layered. Isn't that lovely? And we're going past all sorts of things that I could be showing you, like rhubarb and blackcurrant, but they are so choked up with other things that it's really hard to separate them to show you. But you know, one of these days I'll be able to show you stuff which has been properly tended. And these, but they're so beautiful, some of the things that come on their own, like these, I think they're called Chinese forget-me-not. I'm not quite sure, but I think so. But look at the colour of that blue. Someone will correct me if I'm wrong, I hope. And this is a little pathway through, which is not much of a pathway through at all now, through the trees, which I've been lucky enough to have some help with the strimming. And that has been trimmed, but it is all coming back now. But you can at least see that there's trees that side and trees that side, but I'm sure you can't actually see it all on the video, but on the ground here you can see that this little tunnel is actually a walkway. Maybe if I cut some branches back, then it would be easier to actually walk along the walkway, but it is a walkway. And there's something else I wanted to show you along here, which is quite unusual, and I'm not going to be very helpful because I'm not going to be able to tell you what it's called, but this is some kind of wild fruit, and I don't know what it is, but it's thriving, and it is some kind of berry, and the berry will be edible, but it won't necessarily be that tasty for humans unless you perhaps cook it in a crumble, because that's basically what the wild fruits are like. A long time ago, relatively, about probably 3 years ago, or a bit more maybe even, I bought some little tiny wild fruit, well, I say bushes, they were like literally little tiny little stems in plastic cups with a little lollipop stick telling you what they were, from a wild fruit nursery in Wales. And they were tiny, and it did say don't plant them out yet, keep them in a cold frame or something. And I kept them over the winter, and I think they mostly survived, but then when I planted them in the ground, some of them just disappeared they couldn't compete with everything else. But one or two of them have loved it, including this one. And they are kind of different berries, like chokeberry and thimbleberry and Saskatoon, I think one's called. Salmonberry, I think one's called. Wolfberry. I think the wolfberry, I'm not sure where that one is. I think that might be another name for goji berry, actually, not sure. But anyway, this one, and I can actually see here, just noticed how the fruits, you see there's lovely white flowers, which is what I was noticing, which the insects are really liking. Look, there's a bee inside that one. See the pollinator? But there's also the fruits forming as well. So, and nothing there is poisonous, so it might be quite nice to try some of them, maybe mix some of them in a crumble and see what they're like, or maybe mix some of them with the cultivated fruits to make them go a little bit further. This here is another one. I think anyway. Yes, I'm pretty sure it is. This one's not flowering though, so it's really hard to better work out what it is. So as we walk along the back of the garden, or as close to the back of the garden as we can reach, because the hedge is actually up there, and we've got a little layer here before we get to the walkway here. You can just, I suppose one of the main things you notice is just how green it all is, and because the sun's shining you do get this lovely dappled woodland effects. And if I put the camera down here, you almost would think you've got a proper woodland here. Look, with the birch trunks. And this again was a bundle of 5 little saplings for a hedge or something, and I put them into a little circle of 5 birches, and they're gradually becoming real silver birches. We're getting their silvery trunks and they're peeling bark, and as they mature you can see, I can see how gradually one after the other of them is achieving that, if that's the right expression. And one of them in particular, or 2 of them really, are really starting to peel. When I get round to that area I'll show you. Here we are, I've gone into this little circle, and actually another thing I'm just noticing as well, I'm just showing you as I notice myself, is I've always said to myself that although it's all the middle of the woodlands is all full of things coming up that I don't really want to be like that there, like thistles for example, as the woodland grows those plants will not like the levels of light because it's not woodlandy. I mean, it is woodlandy and they don't like woodland conditions, and so they'll disappear and you'll just get a proper forest floor. And I'm just seeing between these birches that's kind of starting to happen, because you can see how that's looking much more like a woodland floor now. So I'm hoping that sort of thing will continue. But to get back to what I was going to show you, here is the silver birch, and I'm probably not focusing very well, but look, it's actually got proper peeling silver bark now. Like a real birch tree. Well, it is a real birch tree, but you can recognise it much more for what it is. Whereas the one which is least birch-like, this one here, is still fairly brown looking and is just starting to peel back the baby effect here and get its silvery trunk. So it's really fascinating to watch them developing. This is a native shrub here is the Guelder rose, and they're in flower at the moment as well, and they have berries that I think they are edible by humans, I'm not sure, but certainly they're really good for the wildlife. There's nettles here. There's is that one as tall as me? Maybe not quite, but it's getting there. And this is a wild cherry. It's not a bird cherry, it's a wild cherry, and that is really tall. That's one of the tallest trees in the garden. And again, it was just a little native hedging plant. So I'll just finish by saying I don't want to disturb her, so I won't move the branches too much, although I do, and we look at each other eye to eye. But just in the bay tree here, there's a blackbird nesting, and she's actually on the nest right now, and there are 2 babies that she's looking after, and she spends loads of time on the nest with them. She is lovely, and we're really, really good friends, and I spend quite a bit of time just about a couple of feet from her, or less probably, and we look at each other in the eye, and I have a lovely conversation with her, and she's completely relaxed and lets me do that. And when she's not on the nest, I'll part the branches and look closely at the babies, and she's happy with me doing that as well. It's a really lovely relationship, and she's the same blackbird as I've known for 4 years. Last year the nest wasn't used, and I just, I thought that was the end of that. And I noticed not so long ago this has all been repaired, and that she was sitting on it. So that was really lovely to see. And there are only 2 babies, which is not very many for a first brood of the year. So I don't know whether that's because it's been a bad year in some way for them, or because she's getting older and they lay fewer eggs, like hens lay fewer eggs as they get older. I don't know. But at least there are the 2 babies, and I've seen them lying there together with their beaks close together. They are very, very sweet. They're still very fluffy and not anywhere near ready to fly yet. So I'm keeping an eye on them. And then suddenly I'll be in the kitchen. Sorry, it's not very exciting looking at these bay leaves. I'll move the camera across here a bit. I'll be in the kitchen and I suddenly hear blackbirds singing, maybe in the evening, and I come out, and yes, she has gone off the nest and she's singing on the trellis or in the hedge, which is so lovely, that she has her life is, I don't know, I just feel like I could learn a lot from her. Maybe we all could. where she just does what she does. What she has to do is she has to look after those babies, and there she does that, and she's and then when she comes off the nest, she just really seems to be enjoying herself, and she just knows how to have a nice time, really. Her singing just sounds so beautiful.